Hello everyone, welcome to the daily news analysis session presented to you by Manika IAS. So today, as always, as before we proceed further, we'll first look into the topics that we'll be discussing today and their relevance as per the exam. So let's first look into the topics. The very first topic that we'll be discussing today is free and fair elections. This is with reference to Chandigarh polls, which happened recently and then subsequently followed by the Supreme Court judgment on that. So we'll be looking into the aspects of elections, free and fair elections in India. So it is relevant for your GS paper 2 polity and has more uh, mains significance. Less important for prelims, but more for mains. The next topic that we'll be discussing today is launch of various new projects. So in recent times, yesterday, day before yesterday, Prime Minister has launched many projects. So we'll be discussing those projects and we'll look into the aspect which is relevant for your preliminary exam. Okay, the third thing is land management. How do you take care of your manage land and sustainable development of land? So this again is relevant for your GS paper 3 environment, and it also has a relevance more for mains. A few points are there which are relevant for prelims as well. So I will highlight the point which are relevant for prelims here when we'll be discussing. Other than that, largely the analytical part of this topic is relevant for your mains. So let's first look in the topics of free and fair elections. So recently there was a judgment which was delivered with respect to the Chandigarh polls. So there was this video which went viral showing that the returning officer was doing something with respect to the polls which were casted. Okay, so there was some change in the ballot which was clearly visible in that video. So on that, the Supreme Court has delivered a judgment on February 20, 2024, which expresses the concern about subversion of the electoral process and emphasized the duty of the court to ensure justice. So the Supreme Court highlighted that even a returning officer, if he or she can alter the casted votes, so we can expect the magnum amount of alteration that can be done with respect to the polls casted. See why this is of a big concern. See, we all know that India is a democracy and it is the world's largest democracy. And what kind of democracy? India is a representative democracy. Representative. See, democracy is ruled by the people, for the people. And in India, we see that we do not rule directly. We are a democracy, but since we have a huge diversity and the number of people living in India are huge, so we have a representative democracy. That means we select our representative to make policies on our behalf. That means for every constituency represent a set of population, and that individual who has been selected from that constituency is the representative of this particular people, and they are responsible for making policies in favor of such people. Okay, so this is what we refer to as when we say that India is a representative democracy. Now that means if somebody is altering our votes, that simply highlights that they are taking away our democratic rights from us, it is literally an attack on the democracy of India. Now let's see what are the foundational principles highlighted by this article of free and fair elections. The Supreme Court has asserted that free and fair elections are a fundamental part of basic structure of Indian constitution. So, if you have read your polity, you know that we have a basic structure of constitution that cannot be altered. See, basic structure is that essence of the constitution, that no matter what you do, what amendments you bring in, you cannot take away that essence and those provisions of the constitution. That is referred to as basic structure. So Supreme Court has highlighted that free and fair election are the basic structure of the constitution. Okay, are a part of basic structure. So no matter what you do, you cannot take away this right from us. And when you are doing such activities like alteration of any sort of voting system and all, so that is sheer altering the basic structure, and that is why Supreme Court is responsible to ensure and bring in justice at these point of areas. Now, what is the significance of judicial intervention? As we have discussed, that in cases where electoral process is subverted, the court is duty bound to ensure complete justice and protect the democratic process. And if you remember, we had a question in prelims like, who is the guardian of constitution? So this was the question which was asked in prelims, and the options were given: Supreme Court, President, Prime Minister, and others. And the correct answer to that was the judiciary. That is why court is duty bound in case there is any subversion of democratic process, because it is the guardian of the constitution. And that is why, since free and fair election are the basic structure of the constitution, Supreme Court is duty bound to come into picture in these cases and bring in justice. Okay, so that justice should prevail. So another important decision which was delivered recently with respect to free and fair elections was your electoral bond scheme. So this scheme was recently quashed by the Supreme Court. If you have been following news, you must have known that recently Supreme Court has said that this scheme is inappropriate. It is not constitutional. Why? Because it has an element of anonymity. That means if I'm a civilian who want to vote in favor of a particular party, and then we should know from where they are getting funds. But if you see electoral bonds, the identity of the donor is not revealed. Okay, so that means essentially I would never know from where the funds are coming to a particular party. Okay, that literally means the lack of, it is again against right to information, which is a fundamental right. So, on these basis, Supreme Court also quashed the electoral bond schemes. So, that is why the Supreme Court said that it is duty bound to protect the fundamental rights of citizens, to protect the democratic principle, to ensure the basic structure is maintained, and on a larger scale to ensure that constitutionalism prevails and the justice prevails. So, this is the responsibility of judiciary. Now, what are the challenges if you see today the electoral integrity? The, Now it has seen that the such small office bearers, if they can, as we have discussed, they can alter the course of results, then you can expect the amount of alteration that can be done. So there is a need to ensure a more transparent voting mechanisms, and overall you need to have people with more integrity and probity as well. See, this stems from the society itself. If the society as a whole will be more integral, that reflect the office bearers will be more integral. See, this is a concept in your ethics. So whenever you get a question on ethics with respect to integrity and probity, you can quote this example and you can quote the Supreme Court as well. So these are the examples that you can use in your ethics paper as well. And it says, the concept says that um, the people in power are the reflection of society itself. So we need to have ethical understanding and learning since our childhood, so that when we grow up as adults and as people who have responsibility, as we always say, that with great power come great responsibility. With great power comes great responsibility. So when you get some power, then you should be responsible enough to held that in a responsible manner, so that the justice and the ethicality should prevail on a larger picture. So this was the need. And now let's see the role of constitutional body. See, constitutional bodies such as Election Commission of India have been entrusted with the conducting election. So we all know that Election Commission is responsible for the conduct of elections. And then we have laws RPF 50 and 1951, which aim to ensure the integrity of the electoral system. Now, this is also a part of your GS paper 2 syllabus. So, when you will read polity, you will read about the details with respect to this act, but you must know that these are the provisions which are actually controlling the election system in India. Okay. Now, let's move to the next topic, which is your launch of various new projects. So, the Prime Minister has launched several projects worth 48,000 crores across the country, and 41,000 crore of railway infrastructure projects were also launched. Let's look into these projects one by one. So these are the projects which are actually important and can be asked in your preliminary examination. You can get questions around this in your prelims. See, the Prime Minister has launched 5 new aims. He has laid the foundation stone for the development of 5 new All India Institutes of Medical Science in 5 states. And what is the relevance? Relevance it will improve the doctor-patient ratio and will further enhance the healthcare services in India. We all knew that recent time when we were faced with the calamity called COVID-19, the in the during specifically during the second wave, there was a lot of collapse with the healthcare system. We faced lost lot of challenges. So this shows that we need to make our healthcare system more robust, and this is one step in that direction. That Prime Minister has laid the foundation stone, announced that there will be 5 more aims coming up in 5 states, and these are: one in Bhatinda, Punjab, and second is in Raebareli, Uttar Pradesh. Third is in Rajkot, Gujarat. Fourth is in Kalyani, West Bengal. Fifth is will be coming in Mangalagiri in Andhra Pradesh. Okay, so these are the 5 new aims which will be coming up with the aim to improve the healthcare services and penetration in India. The second important project which was launched by, by Prime Minister is Sudarshan Setu. So it is the India's longest cable stayed bridge of around 2.3 kilometer, linking Okha mainland to Beth Dwarka. Okay, there was another project which was launched recently, and that is Atal Setu, which is the longest river bridge. Comment in the comment section that it was launched in which state. It was launched in which state? Comment down below. And now see that it will be connecting. This is your Gulf of Kutch, this is your Gujarat, and here it will be connecting Okha, which is your mainland, to this Beth Dwarka, which is a separate piece of land. Okay. So this is your Sudarshan Setu. Remember, it will be in Gujarat. It will connect these areas, Okha to Bet Dwarka, and it will be the longest cable stayed bridge. This can be asked again in your prelims. It is important for your pre 2024. See, from March onwards, 5th, 6th March onwards, you will be having model code of conduct. So there will be less launch of new policies and projects because the government will cannot function after that. Okay. So as a result of which you will see very less news related to new projects coming in. So these are the projects which has the potential to be asked in your preliminary examination. So always remember these points. These are extremely important. Now, another thing is it has also laid down the foundation for 554 Amrit Bharat station. So if you remember when we discussed budget, interim budget, we said the government will be coming up some rail infrastructure project. So these are 554 Amrit Bharat stations, and this is an initiative to revamp key railway station across the country, across 27 states, and he has also inaugurated over bridges and under bridges. So this is important, but has more relevance for your mains. Although you must know what are Amrit Bharat station. Okay, it's just a nomenclature, nothing much. So another project which was launched was 200 healthcare infrastructure work with 11,500 crore across 23 states and 21 projects of employee state insurance corporation worth 2,280 crores. So these are again important for your mains, where in answer writing you can mention that these are the steps which are taken for healthcare infrastructure boost. Okay, other than that, what were important from the prelim point of view, we have discussed already. The one is your 5 new AIIMS coming up in 5 different states and cities. So you must remember that. Second is your Sudarshan Setu. Third, we have also discussed about Atal Setu. So these are 3 important points for your prelims. These can be added in your mains answer writing. The next point is land management. See, India, when we hear the word land, what comes to us in our mind? What comes to in our mind is a very limited knowledge of land, limited usage of land. That means land for property, land for agriculture. That's it. Okay. But if you actually see, land is essential for ecological, economic, social, and cultural services. Okay. And we generally overlook the multifaceted benefit. It is important for your sustainable development, and it is home to huge variety of biodiversity. Okay, then it has linked with social aspect such as tribals, their connectivity and their emotional sentiments associated with land, and then you have some land rights issue which is going on around these areas. Okay, and these land is facing excessive stress due to population degradation, environmental issues. Okay, population is one, agriculture is another, use of fertilizer, inappropriate gr- growing of crops. Okay. Now, if you see the global perspective, globally, annual losses for just give me a sec. Globally, annual losses of ecosystem services due to land degradation are estimated at $6 trillion. Globally, $6 trillion का लॉस होता है लैंड डिग्रेडेशन की वजह से. Then internationally, what are the steps that has been taken to preserve lands? That includes United Nations Convention to combat desertification, IPCC Special Report on Climate Change. It has highlighted that there is a need for sustainable land management, and how it can be achieved. We will be looking forward. Now, see what are the challenges with respect to land management in India. So, India is home to only 2.4% of land in the world. But if you see the population density, we have 17% of the world population, and India being the most populous country now. So the population density is very high, and on this much we have this much dependent population. So there is a scarcity of land, and there is increased demand of land, and that is why we are seeing that huge degradation, cutting down of forest, deforestation, all these are catering to the further unsustainable usage of land. Okay, around 30% of India's total geographical area is degraded land, and competition for land is increasing due to population growth, urbanization, developmental demands, as we discussed. Okay, now what are the current land management? How are we managing our land in India as of now? It is sectoral, basically each department following its own approach. So we do not have a comprehensive land management policy. Agricultural department look after the agriculture management of land. Then we have some forest rights acts in place which are looking after the land in the forest areas. Then we also have private ownership of land. So it becomes a very difficult and scattered approach to manage the land, and this is a big issue, that we do not have a comprehensive and centralized comprehensive policy to manage land, and one such reason being that land is a state subject. Remember this point for your prelims as well. Now, what are the recommendations that has been given for improvement of the land in ecology? Now, it has said that if you take multi-stakeholder platform, that means if you bring in comprehensive approaches, if you integrate all the stakeholders together, then there is a possibility that you can safeguard your land at district sub-district level to integrate farmers, policymakers, civil society, business leaders and investors. One is this, and then activating district planning committees under Article 243 ZD Clause 1 of the Constitution for comprehensive land management planning. So, this article has provided for the district planning committees. Now, the article also says that you need to um, empower them for land management, comprehensive land management planning के लिए. ठीक है. Another approach which was suggested by this editorial was adopting a landscape approach. What does that mean? That means you look uh, into the landscape as such, like what are the potential usage of this particular land, how you can utilize it, it's in its maximum capacity in the best possible way and the most sustainable way. Say for example, in states which do not have much water like Punjab, Haryana, where you are growing paddy, take a rice as, how can you replace those crops with less water intensive crops? Okay, so if you are able to grow crops according to the land availability rather than the uh, decisions taken by the farmer, if you can educate them within such regards, and specifically in areas like Maharashtra where you have very less water availability and the agriculture is in abysmally bad condition, if you can improve and educate them by using drip irrigation method, and also growing crops which you consume less amount of water, this will help in better usage of land. Okay, and that is why we are saying that landscape approach is important. Another thing is climate smart landscape approach to align with the climate objective, agriculture production as we discussed, livelihood improvement and biodiversity conservation. Okay, this is what is suggested. Another thing is you need to have a systematic institutional support in order to conserve the land as such. Okay, and they have also cited global example like European Landscape Convention. Now, European Landscape Convention has proclaimed that landscape is the key element of individual and social well-being. The UK Parliamentary Office of Science and Technology has said sustainable land management, managing land better for environmental benefits in 2021, has observed that actions for addressing and adapting to the climate change, achieving food security, tackling the biodiversity crisis are all embedded and dependent on how land is managed. That means if you manage your land, you will be able to manage your food security, your nutritional security, okay, climate change. It is the improper mismanagement of land that has catered to these crises. And if you somehow manage to manage the land in a proper way, you will be able to combat these crises. So we need to have a comprehensive stakeholder approach and appropriate policies for long term sustainability involving all relevant stakeholders. This is something that you can add in your conclusion when you are writing your answer in your mains examination. Okay. So you must write these lines in the pointers wherever you are writing your content with respect to land management. This will help you in saving your times and not thinking much about the conclusion and introduction. See, whenever I discuss, I give you many pointers that can be added in your intro and conclusion. So if you are using them in your answer writings and you are making a note of it wherever you are discussing that particular topic, this will save a lot of time in your mains, because you genuinely do not have much time when you are writing your answers in mains. So if you have some pre-made introduction and conclusion, that will help you in certain questions as okay. So this was it with respect to today's daily news analysis. If you have any question, you may please ask in the comment section below. Thank you. Have a nice day.